Good morning, everyone. I hope I'm audible to you and my screen is visible. Okay. Yeah, good morning, everyone. So what is this program supposed to? We're continuing with the file handling. So what is this program supposed to do is it is used to copy the content from one file to another, which we have already seen. But now we are using with try with resource. Now we are using it with try with resource. As I told you, when we use try with resource, there is no need to explicitly close the file in the final block. It is automatically taken care by the try with resource to close that particular file. So what is our aim? Our aim is to copy the content from one file to another file, okay, using command line arguments. So what is the first step I need to do? I need to check whether correct numbers of arguments have been supplied or not. In case it is not, then I should come out of the program. The second thing I need to do is I'm using try with resource. Try with resource means in the try block itself, before opening brace starts, I have an opening bracket and closing bracket in which I mention the file input stream and a file output stream associated with argument 0 and argument 1. Argument 0 and argument 1. Okay, so whatever you mention over there as argument 0, that will be used for reading the content using fin object, and whatever you mention as argument 1, that will be used for writing the contents. Then what I do over here, I set up a do while loop. In the do while loop, what I do, I read the content from the particular file and store the contents in I. If I is not equal to -1, that means as long as it is not end of the file, kindly write it in the file. Okay. If you keep on doing this while I is not equal to -1. Clear? And after this cache block, there is no explicit closing of the file. Why we haven't closed the particular file? Because what happens is whenever you mention the arguments in the try block, in the try opening bracket, closing bracket, which we call it as try with resource, it is going to be automatically closed. It is going to be automatically closed. So kindly run the program. I won't be giving you the demonstration because yesterday you must have understood what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to go to the command prompt, go to the appropriate folder, okay, mention the file name, the existing file name as a file name to read the contents, and a new file name to copy the content from one file to another file. Okay, let's see if you are in a position to do it or not. I'm muting myself, okay. In case you have any doubt in execution of the code, kindly type it in the chat window. Those who have completed, kindly type done. Sahil, you are not providing the correct number of arguments. You should say Java EX10. That is wrong command. You should say Java EX10. No dot Java required. You should say Java C ex10.java to compile the code, and to run the code, you should say Java space ex10 space any text file, existing text file, and then some new file to copy the content. Now, instead of writing one character at a time, is it possible to write a complete string? Yes, it is quite possible to write a new string over there. So what I do over here is to fasten the process of writing the content to the file, I use a buffered writer. I use a buffer writer along with the file writer. So my file name is test.txt. Then I say try buffer writer bw is equal to new buffer writer, new file writer, destination file. What is destination file? This particular file name, g colon file handling test.txt. You may ask me a question, can I use a command line argument? Yes, we could use a command line argument. If you do the command line argument, then this will be argument 0. Then this will be argument 0. Anyway, let's come back to the main code. What I'm supposed to do over here, I'm supposed to create an object of the buffer reader. The buffer reader is associated with the file writer. The file writer is associated with the destination file, which is g colon file handling test.txt. Our aim is to write a string, one string at a time. So what I do, I use a try with resource. When I use a try with resource, I don't have to close a particular file. I don't have to close a particular file. So what I'm doing over here, I'm saying b dot append test, b dot append test1, b dot append test2, b dot append test3. So I keep on appending this particular text, but they'll be on the same line. To add a new line, what I do, I say bw dot new line, bw dot new line, and so on. Okay. Once we have added this particular contents, what I do, there is no need to flush the content, but for the safety side, what I have done, I said flush. That means you add all the contents and then come out of it, okay. And in case in this particular process, if there is an exception, kindly raise that exception by typing SOP E2, or you can simply say E2.print stack trace, which is nothing but it is going to take me to the line which has raised the exception, So let me run this code for you. And let me share that screen. There is already a file called a test.txt, so I'll remove them. Let me compile the code. Now, what is my aim? Instead of writing single character, I want to write a complete string. Okay, that is test one, test two, test three, along with the new line, For that, I'm using a buffered writer, which is using the file writer. What is the file name? The file name is destination file, which is this one. Clear? So let me run this code for you. If you say Java, let me type it. Then it is going to give me, it is not going to give me anything because I haven't caught that particular exception. I haven't written that if the number of arguments we have entered, it doesn't have a number of argument. Okay. So what this is going to do is when I give it is not a command line argument, I realize it. So when I run this particular code, what should happen is, it should use the buffer writer to write the content of the file writer. File writer is associated with the destination file. Destination file is associated with test.txt. It should create that particular test.txt and it should append this particular string. Okay, let's check out whether the file is created or not. Is the file created? Yes. Let's see the contents. Do we have the contents? Yes, we do have the contents. See, test 1, test 2, test 3, which are all on the new line, lines. Buffer writer is used to write the content. Buffer reader is used to read the content of the file. What is the purpose of the new line? Purpose of the new line is to add the enter key in a file. It is similar to line break. Can I have the more than one new line? Yes, you could have multiple new line. So that many new line will be added to the file. You realize? So what I did, I added multiple new lines over here. So I said b dot new line, b dot new line, and b dot new line. So when I run the code, what should happen? You should get a multiple new lines over here. Okay, but here we don't have a new line because there'll be only one new line which takes the cursor on the next line. I hope it illustrates the concept. Yes, you could use the existing file. It'll override that particular file. Kindly run this particular code, then you could ask me the various questions. Tell me when it is done. We are using BufferedWriter to fasten the process. We are using the BufferedWriter to fasten the process. Point number one. Point number two, instead of taking one character, we are writing an entire string. Okay, instead of test, you can say, okay, I'm learning Java, coding in Java is fun. Second line could be, I'm learning C++, C++ is much more, is not as verbose as Java. So what it is going to do, it is not going to write one character, it is going to write one complete string. So certain modifications have to be made to the program, but let everyone complete this particular task. Let everyone complete this particular task. Then I'll tell you the assignment which you're supposed to complete. Okay, all of you now. Instead of having string destination file, I want to use it command line argument. Make the changes in the particular code. Instead of saying string destination file is equal to g:\file handling test.txt, I want to use a command line argument. So instead of new file writer destination file, you'll be mentioning argument 0 over there. Okay, and the argument 0 should be provided in the command line. So kindly do it. 2 minutes for changing the code in this particular file. Yes, great. Is tomorrow holiday? No. Kindly modify the code, use the command line argument and run the code. And once you have done this modified one, kindly write it done in the chat window. Let me have some 6 to 7 done. Then I will go to the next example, or I will tell you what exercise you have to do. Okay, I have got 3 done. Let me have some more done. I'll wait for a minute, otherwise I'm going to start with the modification of this code. Okay, all of you please pay attention now. The next activity, you'll be given 5 minutes. Okay, kindly open Google. Okay, you'll have to keep it open for finding the necessary help. Now, if you looked at this particular example, what I did, I used a buffer writer. Buffer writer took the file writer. I took a string. and I wrote the content. For example, what I did, I say bw.append test. Instead of that, I could have simply said string A is equal to welcome to coding, and I could have written the contents by saying bw.append so and so, right? Now, what I want you to do is, I want you to write another program which will be using buffer reader. Okay, kindly pay attention. Which will be using buffer reader. Buffer reader will be associated with file reader. That means over here, we are going to have a buffer reader. Over here, we are going to use a file reader. You're going to use a file reader. That's the first point. Okay. The second thing you need to do is, you need to use a read line to read the string from the file. You need to use a read line to read a string or to read a complete line from the file. Okay. Then what you'll have to do, you will have to use a while loop. While it is not equal to something, you have to display that particular line by saying SOP. And then within that while loop, what you do is you read the contents. If you don't want to use a while loop, then you can use a do while loop. In the do while loop, what you're going to do, you're going to use the read line, store the contents in a string, display the contents, and then what you do, you continue this process. As long as it is not equal to the end of the file, you should continuously keep on displaying the contents. Are you with me? Again, I'll explain. See, this particular program use a file writer and a buffer writer to write a string in a file. Now I want you to write a corresponding program for this, which is going to use a buffer reader. Use buffer reader. Use file reader. Set up a do while loop. Set up a do while loop. Okay, and using a do while loop, display the contents. Okay. Imanshu, kindly set up a do while loop. Why, I will tell you. Otherwise, you will have to set up a read line over here. You will have to set up one more read line over here. Okay. So that's why I'm saying set up a do while loop. Kindly change this code to do while. Once you have completed, display your complete program in the chat window. Yes, any status of the code? Were you in a position to write the code? Okay, let me, instead of repeating it again, let me give you the solution, as I don't think. Okay, pay attention. What I told you was you should use the buffer reader along with the file reader to read the contents from the file. Okay, so what I did was I mentioned the file name. Okay, I mentioned the file name, the complete path, g colon file folder and the test.txt. That particular file name was mentioned as a parameter over here, same like my previous program, but what changed over here? I use a file buffer reader and the buffer reader use a file reader. My aim is to read a one entire line of text. Then I told Himanshu that use a do while loop, okay, to read the contents from it. But can I use a while loop to read the content? Yes, I can do that. So what trick I did was, in a while loop, I declared a variable called as text of the type string. Then what I did in the while loop itself, I said text equal to br.readline. Now assume that the contents of the file are Java is easy, Java file handling is little bit verbose. Assume that these two files are there, these two lines are there in a file. So it will read the first line. Is it not equal to null? Yes, it is not equal to null. Display the content. Then it will try to read the second line. Is that read operation successful? Yes, it is not equal to null. Display that content. Read the third line. Read the third line. There is no third line, so it will return null. So what will happen? This while loop will be over and I close the contents. I close the content. So this is the very simple code to read the contents. Okay, you will be executing the code as it is. Then what you are going to do, you are going to use, here I say throws exception. I don't like this particular concept of throws exception. What you're going to do is you're going to use a try with resource to use to open this particular file. Okay, read the contents so that you don't have to write br.close. Clear? So run the code as it is, then show me the modified code, which uses try with resources. Now if anyone has doubt, kindly raise it now.
Vinay, your program is good, but only thing what you did was you only use a read command. I said do not use a read. Use a read line. Manoj, kindly type your question in the chat window. All of you, please pay attention. Most of you are using the read command. I do not want a read command. Kindly pay attention. I do not want read. Read is going to read one character at a time. That's why I'm not approved of that particular code. I said I want a read line. Yes, now it is right. Yes, Akshit. Yes, Vinay, it's good. So this program doesn't have try with resource. Kindly put it in the try with resource from here. We'll give you 2 minutes. Yes, Himanshu, it is good. So either you can use a do while loop, or what I can do, I can set up this read line inside this particular while loop. So whenever such question come into the questions are asked, you have to keep your documentation open and go through this particular function. For example, in this case, when I said you have to read the content till the end of the file, you should know what is the return type of this read line, what it returns if the contents are not there in the file. It returns null. So for that, the documentation is necessary. You should go through it. What should be the return type if the contents cannot be read from the file? It is null. So I should know it. And at that time, the documentation is handy. Are you with me? I guess most of you have completed it. Kindly pay attention. Input stream, output stream. Okay, directly connects to the file and we can read the contents to it. We can read the contents to it. Okay, but it is highly inefficient. Why? Because it is trying to read one character from the file, and I told you that reading from the hard disk is very slow compared to reading from the memory. Maybe 1,000 times, 10,000 times slower than reading from the memory and reading from the cache. So to fasten the process, what we did, we use something called as a buffer reader and buffer writer. So what these are doing, these are attaching themselves to the file writer and file reader, and they will associate themselves with the file. So your program will run faster. Clear? Always the buffer reader and buffer writer will be the faster. So I hope you have completed the code with the try with resource. Okay. For the next program, I'm going to change my approach. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give you the code. Okay. I want you to execute this code 2 or 3 times and tell me what is this particular code going to do. You're going to use a documentation. You're going to read about, let me share the contents with you first of all. Okay, in this particular program, I'm using the file writer, I'm using the buffer writer, I'm using the print writer, and somewhere over here I'm using true over here. Okay, and then I'm using out.println to write the contents. Okay, your aim is to analyze what is this going to do. Clear? Especially this true part over here. So this exercise is going through my screen, going through the documentation, okay, and trying and telling me what is this first 3 lines going to do. And once you answer it clearly, I'll paste the code in the chat window. I'll run the code and tell you what it does. Yes, Abhishek, good. Good. So let me take this particular code. What it does, it appends the content. It appends the contents to the file. Let me run this. Let me clear the screen. Let me compile this ex13.java. Okay, what I'm doing is bad for the shortcut. Okay, you shouldn't do it. You shouldn't type a star. You should explicitly write file reader, file, and then the file writer. Okay, let me run the code. What is the file name associated? Myfile.txt. I guess let me remove this first and let me run it again. Now let's see the contents of this particular myfile.txt. What it has done, it has written two strings, the text and more text. Okay. Let me run this again and let me see the contents. When I run the code, what happens? It doesn't override the contents. It doesn't override the contents. It appends the content. It appends the content. Let me run it again. See, it is appending the content. Now you have to go through this and tell me which line is responsible for telling it to do not override the content but to append the content. Which particular parameter can you see this true over here? This true says that this true allows me to append the content to the particular file. Okay. This is a much more laborious way of writing the code. What I could have done, I could have said BufferedWriter BW is equal to new BufferedWriter. Within that, I could have said new file writer so and so, comma true. Okay. But if you want to write it as a separate file, then what I do, I create a file writer separately. I create a buffer writer separately, pass this parameter over here and pass this parameter to print writer. Okay. Now, kindly pay attention. Those who want to go through the documentation deeply, I can write system.out.println to display the contents on the screen. Okay, and here I am using the same out.println to write the content to the file. Okay, your out.println is nothing but referring to this particular print writer. But since the print writer is not associated with the screen, but is associated with BW, which is nothing but a buffer writer, which is associated with FW, which is nothing but the file writer, it is writing the content. Since there is a true over here, it is appending the contents. It is appending the contents. Now that I have given you the code, make it false and run it and see what happens. So that is a homework you should do. Right now do it. Make it false and run it and tell me what it does. Have you done it? Okay, great. Okay, the video lectures of the file handling are already uploaded on the screen. Today's video will be again uploaded. Today's programs will be uploaded, right? I hope you have gone through my programs. Yes, if you make it as false, it does not append. It does not append. Clear? So you may not be having this file test.txt. Check out the contents. Instead of saying test.txt, kindly mention the file name, new file name, and check whether it is in a position to write the content or not. If it is in a position to read the content, then it should be an existing file name. For writing, it could be the new file name or existing, but for reading, the file should exist. I hope I have made it clear, Sahil. So point number one, Sahil, in case you want to read the content, the file should be existing. For writing, it could be an existing file. If it is an existing file, it will overwrite it. If it's a new file, it will create it. In case you want to append the content, just type a true. Done? Okay. Now to work with the database, what we have to do? We have to download the MySQL database. Hope my Google screen is visible to you. My screen is visible. Is my screen visible? Okay. So you have to go to this particular site, MySQL downloads. Okay. When you say MySQL download, you will get this particular screen. Okay, there is something called as a MySQL downloads, MySQL installer, MySQL workbench. Okay, it's a paid one, so do not go to the paid one. Go to the community server. Go to community server. So when you go to the community server, depending upon the operating system you have, whether it is Windows, okay, or whether it is Linux, okay, or whether it is Mac, accordingly select your operating system. Download this particular file and install it. Download this particular file and install it. I'm telling you the steps you have to do it today so that tomorrow you are ready with the JDBC coding. Okay, so kindly download this particular zip file, kindly install it. So once you are done, download this particular one, double click on it, install it. Yeah, the first one, install it. Once you have installed it, you have to just click on the next. Okay, once you click on the next, it will ask you for the root password. Remember that root password. Whatever you give the password, such as ABC123, whatever password you give, you remember that. So once the installation is successful, you should get something like this: MySQL Workbench 8.0 CE. C stand for community edition. Click on it. Kindly pay attention. It is little bit resource intensive. Okay. So it will take a little bit longer time to start. Okay, so once you start it, you should be getting MySQL Workbench. I hope you're getting it. Okay, is my screen visible to you? Is it visible, MySQL Workbench? Okay, so once you have clicked on the MySQL, it may take a minute or so, and after that it is going to say your instance has started. Your instance is working on localhost 3306. Kindly pay attention, you don't have to do it now, it will take a long time. Okay, once the lecture is over, you kindly do it. In case you get stuck, ask your faculties which are taking the classes for you. 60 students classes faculties are taking now. Kindly ask them about the installation process of MySQL. Okay, and once I click on it, it will ask me for the password. Whatever password you have set up when you are installing it, that password you have to type. Do not forget that password. Keep it simple. Then you should be in a position to view this particular demo table and so on. Okay, and our Java program will be trying to connect to this particular database and will try to read the contents of this particular table. Is it clear? Do we have a separate course on DBMS? Yes, you do have a separate course on DBMS where you'll be learning the DBMS theory, you'll be learning the SQL, you'll be learning the PLSQL. But right now, our job is to make the Java connect to this particular database. Okay, so take your own time, do the necessary installation and keep it ready. Again, I'm telling you, you have to type MySQL download. Okay, when you say MySQL download, you will get this particular site. Do not install any other MySQL installer. Only go to the community server because that's the only thing that is free. When you go over here, it will directly take you over here with Microsoft Windows selected because I'm using Microsoft Windows. And then install the one which I had told you to download. Download the complete one so that whenever your DBMS will start, you do not have to download it again. In case you get stuck, kindly go to the YouTube and type how to install MySQL on Windows or any other platform which you are working, and that should guide you. So tomorrow we are going to start with the DBMS module. Okay, we will be learning how to use a Java program to connect to the database. Since you have done the web development, learn Flutter in the holidays. in case you want to learn. I also don't know when are the holidays. Okay. So right now concentrate on this particular semester since you have the maths 2 also going on. Right? So let's maths 2 and everything get over. Okay. I guess you are also working on the project whose project in the web development whose submission date is I think in the 3rd week of May or 4th week of May, I guess. Download any one of them and do the installation. Okay. In case you get stuck, kindly go to the YouTube and check out the installation step for MySQL. In case you still get stuck, ask your faculty. In case you're still stuck tomorrow I'll guide you how to do it. And tomorrow we are going to start with the JDBC module. That means how the Java program can be connected to the JDBC. Okay, so that will be the end of the session. Thank you very much. If you have any other queries, you can raise it. I'll wait for a minute. Otherwise, you all can leave.